if she hadn't found this game, then another year from now, they may have never developed a relationship. But now they have this relationship. And so those little vignettes of connection made me believe that what we were doing could be more valuable than just a way to pad my retirement.
Welcome back, Millionaire University. It's me, Kirsten. Today I'm joined by somebody my kids were really, really stoked that I interviewed. I'm bringing on Grandpa Beck of Grandpa Beck's Games. These are games that my family regularly plays, and I met him a few years ago. And I really thought it would be fascinating after seeing a recent Instagram post of his sharing how he had to try different iterations of one of his games to really see success and how he's had to evolve and pivot. To bring him on and share behind the scenes look of starting a business that is something you don't see every day. We all play games, we love games, we buy games all the time. However, we've never really gotten to hear from some of these big providers and creators of the games that we know and love. And this is a really cool opportunity to really peel back the curtain of Grandpa Beck and his vision and really the bigger picture of what he's been able to build and create in families. He's going to share a lot of insight into what they had to do to scale and build and really do it themselves from the ground up. So without further delay, let's welcome onto the show, Grandpa Beck. I can't believe I'm sitting with the man who causes so much contention sometimes around my kitchen table and also so much joy. I am joined by Grandpa Beck of Grandpa Beck's Games, and I could not be more thrilled to share your story. So welcome to the Millionaire University podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure that you've invited me to participate, and I got a chance to listen to some of the past episodes, and I'm always impressed with people who find success, and it inspires me.
Yeah, it inspires me too. And I know that this episode is going to be very inspiring because you do something that maybe you don't see a lot of people doing. A lot of people sell a product, but you sell games. And so let's dive into what that evolution has looked like. What was the very first game? How did we even get into the gaming business?
It was not my initial focus in life. My real goal from the time I was a kid and young adult years was to be an airline pilot. And I took a lot of years of hard work to go from just living by the airport to being an airline pilot. But I worked hard for a decade, putting myself through school and through flight training and achieving that, and then spending 43 years flying and 28,000 hours and having a full career with an airline and retiring from the airline about 3 years ago. So that was a big focus, and we had 5 kids and now we have 20 grandkids. And so I was busy with being dad and a PTA president and scout leader and all those kind of things in life that you do when you're raising kids. And so that was really my main focus in life. But in my 50s, a lot of the airlines were losing money and having bankruptcies. So we were looking at something to do as a little side thing to help out someday with retirement. And our oldest daughter's husband's uncle, Jack, taught them a face card game with a golf theme. And we played it for years. And I thought, it's a really fun game, but it'd be so much better if it was illustrated and optimized and if it was improved upon to make an actual game instead of just this thing we did with face cards. That was really the inspiration to make a game. But I had no idea about how to do any of that. I was just an airline pilot with a degree in psychology, so I could get a job with the airlines. But so it took a lot of years to figure out things, and we made so many mistakes along the way and got a lot of bad advice and false promises and just print errors and you name it. We believed that this game could be successful. And then before we actually launched into retail sales, we had a second game added, which is called Cover Your Assets. And we went to a toy fair in New York in February of 2012 with these 2 little games that we had branded together as Grandpa Beck's Games, which was actually our third attempt to make a business name because of trademark issues that made it personalized when we called it Grandpa Beck's Games. And this trade show in New York is at the Javits Center, this big, huge convention hall. We're in this little 10 by 10 booth, wondering, what the heck am I doing here? We spent money to fly to New York and stay in hotels, and we hardly made any sales, but we made connections that are still like a store we met. And then the owner has been selling, he had 3 stores at the time, now he has 8 stores, and he's been selling our games by the tens of thousands of dollars a year for 13 years. And
wow.
We met the Canadian distributors, which were there, and they took a chance on us, and they've been our distributors ever since then in Canada, and they introduced us to some people in Germany, and just lots of connections occurred because of that one connection.
Wow.
It's a long game, but we started and we kept going.
Yeah. You know what else is a long game is Antiquity Quest. I'm teasing.
Well, it's one of our more deep games, but
Yeah.
it's a classic, and it actually is designed to make the kind of hand and foot play happen in 45 minutes instead of 4 hours when the original game was. So it's actually a shortened version of the game that it came from.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I want to actually ask that because you said that the first game, which is Gnoming Around, was originated from a card game that your friends taught you, and then you decided to just make it your own and brand it. What is the trademark law with that? Because who even invented the original game in some of these games that a lot of us know and love? What did it take for you to just take the concept and apply it to your own? Was it complicated or pretty simple?
First, I had to learn, what can you make your own? If you do a patent, or what do you do? But you can't do a patent on a game. That's a different process. You can do a copyright, but it has very little power because someone changes a word that it's not yours anymore. But you can trademark the name. And the trademark issue is important because it's really all you have that makes it your own. But we were 3 tries at making the company name. We started off, the game was called Golf. Grandpa Beck's Golf is how we got to trademark, because we made it have the Grandpa Beck's name to it. And then later we remodeled it to make it Gnoming Around, to make it a little more interesting, because we started off, I was limited in my paradigm. There was this golf game, so I had to make it more golfy. But my wife initially suggested we make it more imaginative, but I wasn't open enough to it. But later on, we redid it in a more imaginative way, and so it was an improvement that came over time. So the trademark does give you some protection. People can't use the actual name. That doesn't prevent them from making a knockoff of the mechanic, because we've had several people make a knockoff of our most successful domestic game, Cover Your Assets. And we've also had a lot of counterfeits of it as well that are made and sold. And we spend a lot of money trying to fight the counterfeit issues. It's not easy. All you can do is do the best you can and control the market that you can and develop loyal fans who look for your game.
Yeah.
And try and win in the marketplace. But when we began, from the very first show, there was a company that said, hey, we'll take the rights to your game and we'll distribute it for you, because they already had a successful company. And we could have done that and been done. We could have just let them take care of it, and we would have had some little bit of royalties and could have gone on with our lives. But we felt that we'd have a greater opportunity to really grow with the company if we managed it and if we self-distributed. But in life, a lot of times, you don't really know what is going to happen for something to happen. No idea how hard it was to do that, actually. It seemed like a good concept, but I had no idea the difficulties involved. I came to know over time some of those difficulties, but in the end, it was a harder way to go, to create your own brand and your own distribution channel and your own system. But it gives you a chance to have control over it and to grow with it. And then now we have 11 games under the Grandpa Beck's Games brand, and we've redone them several times to get them more consistent. But by doing so, it gave us a much bigger experience and a much bigger gain, but a lot more work and life work.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack in there, because I know that if I am listening to this and I'm curious about getting into this industry specifically, what do you know now that you didn't know then that might even apply across the board with distributing a product and trying to create a brand? What are some of those, maybe if you were to give us like 5 things you need to know before jumping into this that you wish you'd have known back then?
Well, one of the good to understand the industry more than we did. We just kind of went to Toy Fair, had a booth. But if I'd known more, there's conventions in that industry I could have gone to. There's a thing called the Game Manufacturing Association, GAMA, which has a meeting every year. People go to that meeting and they learn more about it before they actually launch. We didn't do that. We just launched on our own. We had problems from the very first as far as production. And our first print run we did was at a place recommended by our first illustrator. And when we got the game back, it was totally dysfunctional. The printing was all splotchy, and we basically had a loss of those 5,000 units that we had ordered out of our pocket. And so another lesson would be, if you're going to do production with someplace, go to the place where you're doing production, even if it costs you more. I didn't go to China to see this factory. And I didn't really know that you had to have a specific factory that knew how to do playing cards, not just general printing, because playing cards is its own science, not basic printing. But they were obviously not a very qualified factory when they sent us like two big pallets of 5,000 copies of games where that's like water spots on it, where it's like it was totally dysfunctional. So that's a big lesson. But in the end, there's no way you can know all the answers before you have the questions. You have to realize that you're going to have things happen that you don't like, and that mistakes are going to happen, and you're going to have errors in your printing. You're going to have people that say, I can help you be your distributor. I can provide a good warehouse. All those things are going to happen, and they're not going to work out. You just got to realize that 80% of what you try is not going to work out initially, and you can quit or you can keep trying. If you quit and you're done, if you keep trying, then you have a chance to succeed. And we could have done all this work. We could have spent, before we turned a profit, we were in a 6-figure hole at least. I wasn't a very good accountant, but I could have had all that loss and not made a gain. But we really believed in our products and had good feedback. And so we stuck with it. And now we've sold like 2.5 million games, and we sell 500,000 games a year and 20 languages of some of the games. And so it's become very interesting and productive. What you do is you can try and make yourself stand out in some way from the market. And one thing we did that others haven't done, and still people think is crazy, is we made it very personal with the Grandpa Beck's Games name, with my little image on the boxes and on the rule book, and my cell phone number on every box. And so people around the world call me and text me and send me messages, and either they call to see if I'm real, or they call for the question, or they send a picture of the family playing, or family called last week that were on a 10,000-foot mountain in Utah playing the game at the apex of their hike.
Wow, that's so awesome.
Some fun things. From the very beginning, what gave us hope is that we're at this first show, and there was a mom and dad and 2 kids, and the parents owned a toy store. And the kids were young teens. They didn't want to be drugged around this convention all day. They had an attitude, a little bit of tension there in the family. But my wife said, hey, come sit down. And we showed a little table, and we had them play the cover after the game for a few minutes. And in 2 minutes, all that negative energy went away. The kids were laughing and enjoying their parents. And that episode just said, wow, this can make a difference in people's lives. And about the same time, a woman called me who managed a KOA campground, and she had a campground store. And she called me, and she just had to get the golf game for her store because her 17-year-old son, who never came out of his room, once they played that game, every night when she got home, he wanted to sit down and play this game with her.
Wow.
And I go, wow, if she hadn't found this game, then another year from now, they may have never developed a relationship. But now they have this relationship. And so those little vignettes of connection made me believe that what we were doing could be more viable than just a way to pad my retirement.
Yeah. It sounds like I think people come into businesses with one approach or the other, and then if they're successful, they develop the other. So you can come in with, you had the financial goal, this would be a really great way to pad retirement. And then you found that there was even more vision within that. And the expansion became easier once you caught the bigger vision than just the money. Because I think if it's only about money, that does motivate people to a certain point, but you'll find another way to make money. There's a million ways to do that. And then other people come in with the vision and maybe starting with that ambition, and they have no idea how to do it. And then they start making money, and it's, wow, we're going to take this big. So I love the way, I think it works either way. And I think it's beautiful that you guys found a deeper purpose behind what you were doing and seeing that connection between families, and more than just how can this bless our family, but this is blessing families all over the world, because it does.
Yeah, I wish that I was more altruistic and had began it with more of a giving heart, but I've not been a very good financial investor because it hasn't been the focus of my life. And so I did feel like I needed to do some extra things to work towards that goal. But it was really nice to find out that it really was beneficial to people. And I have just like hundreds and thousands of, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds or thousands of pictures on my phone of people who sent me pictures of their family on vacation or around the kitchen table, just saying, someone wrote me last Sunday morning and said, I just want to thank you for the hundreds and hundreds of hours that we've spent together with your games. It's been so meaningful to us. It's like, what can be more gratifying than for people to tell you that our games, as imperfect and simple or whatever, they're just games we've made. We're blessed that they're good games, and we're blessed that our artist really brings them to life, but it's a game. But if it helps people to make a lasting connection with the ones they love and with their family and friends, it's so gratifying. And because it's Grandpa Beck's games, people address me as Grandpa Beck, and I get to be Grandpa to everybody. And it's really gratifying. It's a pretty fun thing.
That's awesome. So you've touched on a couple things, even in what you just said with the art, and you guys have made it very personal and added your phone number, which I was so blown away when I would see that on the box. Like, is this legit, or is this one of those things? And it's really awesome that you provided that personal touch and that personal connection. And one of my other favorite things is putting Grandma Beck's recipes within each game, and it's specific, lines up with whatever the game is. I want to talk a little bit about, there's two things, the product development itself and how you made that, because the art really is something that's so fantastic about the game. And when you are playing a game, do you feel like that's one of the crucial things to nail, especially in a card game? Or do you feel like you're pretty unique in the fact that you guys have such intentionality with the artwork of these games?
Many games, obviously, with Uno and other games, Phase 10, many games historically very successful with just colors and numbers, queens and stuff that just make it 4 colors and have numbers, and you can make the same kind of rotation of cards. And so that obviously worked for a lot of people. I think in this modern age where we have so much more graphic presentation and everything, it's very pleasing to have something that's better than just colors and numbers, because you can use a little creativity and give it a theme and make it more interesting. But we still want that kind of same classic replayability where you play the game as many times as you want to for as long as you want to and never gets old, compared to something that might, well, you've accomplished the game once and it's over. All games are of the classic style where you never get done playing it, because every time you play it, it's engaging, because you shuffle the cards and there's a variation, so it never ends with, you never get tired of playing it, which is good. But I think the theme gives it more of a thing, and especially each of them have their special thing. But with Skull King, our trick-taking game, I got a message from 3 couples who are doing some service work in a remote area, and they get together 3 times a week and play Skull King, and each of them have made different kind of pirate things, like a sword or a pirate hat or different things. And based on who wins, they take home the trophy for that place each week. And they play this, again, 3 times a week. They play Skull King, and they have these different trophies they share at the end of the night based on who won. And we've had pictures of people, like young adults, who, for Halloween, they all dress up as specific characters in the game, and they take ownership with that. Or just a lot of those kind of things that it makes it much more of a deep experience. And in the game, the Skull King game, the characters' faces in the game are all representations of family members and our artists. And the map card shows the map of the island where we live on, with the X marking the spot. We make things fun and connected because we can. But the first artist we used for the first game, that kind of relationship ended. And we had a friend who had been in the area, but she'd moved. She was an artist, so we called her up and said, could you do a little part-time work for us to help us make this game? So that was like 14 years ago, and she's grown with us. She had no experience in the game industry as we didn't, but she's grown with us, and she's our full-time artist who does all the artwork on the games now. And she's such a gift because she has such unique ability to draw any kind of thing, and she's such on the same wavelength as us that when we have a design idea, her first idea is, wow, that's better than I would have thought of. And so she's a shareholder, and she's a very valuable contributor in the business, and a very meaningful lifelong relationship to her financially and friendship-wise. But for us to have someone we keep on staff and who is a part of the leadership of the company who can bring things to life and make them unique and beautiful. And she can draw everything. It's amazing.
They really are unique and beautiful. And my kids really love the connections between games. If you guys haven't been able to tell by now, I'm a huge fan of Grandpa Beck's games. I think we have maybe all of them. I don't know if there's some newer ones that I haven't gotten yet. You said 13, so I'm going to have to go check my stash. But even on Gnoming Around, the latest version of it, how the gnomes have things in their pockets and it's from Skull King or it's from other games. And you just see those little nods. It's like a Taylor Swift Easter egg situation within your games, which just makes it so fun.
My wife and our artist have such a fun time creating all the unique elements and laughing together. We have a game called Netherman's Treasure. They spent hours and hours thinking of all these fun things that were funky things that people have in their homes 30 years ago that now are illustrated in the game. And the story is that her folks are getting ready to move out of the house, and they got all this junk around the house, and they want to get it to the kids, and no one really wants it, so it's a fun eclectic theme there. But they love making those fun things. And my wife, her creativity and her ideas of mechanics and her patience with all this, all the time that I spent in the office part, she's a big contributor, and very much a team effort with my wife and I as the ones who did it. And for a long time, it was just my wife and I, and then our artist part-time for a decade or so. And now we have some extra help, but it was initially something we just plugged through ourselves.
Yeah.
And I would just work on my time off. And when I was at a layover in a city, I would make phone calls and visit stores and do things while I was a pilot.
Wow, that's impressive and amazing. And I don't think there's a lot of people, I think we live in an era of wanting overnight success and fast success. And to hear the amount of effort and even how many years you've been doing this, because I'm sure that those games have been part of my life for close to a decade, maybe, I don't know. But to hear how long you've really had to put in, because it's easy to see now and be like, yeah, of course it's successful, but there's so much that has to go into that. And so what are some of the things, even as an entrepreneur, what's the background in having that grit and having that determination to see it through? Because so many people would have quit when they didn't see that initial success after a year or two.
My dad he made me work a lot in the garden, and he was a very go-to guy. So I was taught that. But I have kind of a go-to spirit where I don't easily give up on things. And becoming an airline pilot when you're a kid who has no resources or connections, especially starting in the 70s when there wasn't really any hiring going on, it's not easy. I built a house that we lived in. There was a project house, and it took years to get it to where it was really a production project house. And I just believe in starting big goals, but then I don't quit. The bottom tagline of my personal email is dream big, work hard to make it happen. I believe that the success or fulfillment comes in accomplishing things. I remember in a psychology class when I was in high school, a certain of a person's personality is a need achievement is a classification of a personality. I feel that I'm a person who kind of needs to achieve things. I'm a bit of a driven person, but I don't usually have an easy time accomplishing things, but I do have a dedication to sticking with things.
Yeah.
I believe in sticking to things.
Yeah.
And this business, we were, like I say, it was for a decade, we spent all our vacation time going to different shows, like 6 different shows a year. I'm still working full time. We just didn't start traveling until our kids were out of high school, so we weren't taking time away from the family. But we could have been doing a lot more fun things. I could have been out on layovers, seeing the sights or working out instead of in my hotel room on the phone and on the computer. So It was definitely delayed gratification. We hoped to make it successful, but now it's beyond what I ever imagined it could be. And basically see a global possibility. We have, like say, Skull King is in 20 languages, and we'll probably sell 100,000 copies in French this year.
Wow.
Because it's catching on there. But that is just, I feel like this first 13 years or so in the business, since we actually started selling, and we started the business years before that, started thinking about it years before that. So it's been decades of effort, but actually the actual business took a long time until it's profitable. But I figure it's just a foundation upon we can build now. In the world, that's a big place. And even the U.S., we're pretty well known in certain little pockets in Utah or something, but so much of the country, we're just very peripherally known. There really is no end to the possibilities, and that's exciting. And with a quality game that can be replayed for years, there's no end to, it's not like it's a flash in the pan, like it's a fad that's going to be popular this year and not the next year. It's a game people can play for decades, and our goal has always been to make classics that will be classics and be part of the lexicon for more than my lifetime. Like the game Pit came out 100 years ago, and a lot of classic card games have been around for 100 years, so the potential's there.
I definitely know it's going to be part of our heritage with our family for sure. And I was going to say too, these games can get played over and over again. And our most loved games, we have had to order multiple copies of because we wear those games out. And it's not that the quality isn't great. We have played them hundreds and hundreds of times. And so even from the business perspective, people aren't just buying these things one time. And I want to talk a little bit about the scaling too, because you started with 1 and then 2 games, and now you're at 13. But in addition to having multiple products that you can sell, people are going to reorder and they're going to give them as gifts. And for me, I love you releasing a game around Christmas time because it's one of my favorite things to give to my kids for Christmas when the new one comes out or a new version. And that's something you guys have done too. So tell me about the time when you went from a couple of games to, was it hitting a certain benchmark financially? Was it just the creativity kept flowing to where you started adding more and more games?
No, we had the one game initially. I thought, we'll make the one game. It'll be some money, and then a second game. But once you get things going, you get new ideas, and you want to keep working on those ideas, so you keep going forward. And our kids have been very helpful, adding different ideas. One of our sons created the concepts for 3 of the games, and another son the mechanics for 2 of them, and so we have a lot of good talents to draw upon. But it's really something we decide to build on, and we don't want to become someone who just sells a million games for other people or just becomes a distributor. We want all of our games to be our games and ones we own and develop and have full rights to, and that I don't want to have to describe a lot of other people's products. People want us to sell other products, but we just sell things we love and things we believe in. I'm a pretty energetic person, but I can't sell something I don't believe in. I can't sell some overpriced product just because it's going to help me. When we started selling these games, it's something I can sell. And because I feel for the $17 we charge for a game, and if someone spends 50 weekend evenings playing the game, they got a value. And in the end, even though we sell a game, the product we hope results is relationships. And if people have these memories and these times of connection that don't happen if you're just watching TV in the same room. The young woman, 20-year-old I met at a event, and she goes, I grew up playing cover assets. And for someone to have that as a part of their life experience, the fact that we get to be connected to it, and people get this warm feeling. Some people, they get teary-eyed when they talk about the connection they've had playing the games. And it's not because we're so great or because our games are the best things in sliced bread, but the thing is that they're having this relationship, and we get this spillover of love to us because we're accessible from their experience. I mean, if I'd known the person who made Risk or Phase 10 growing up playing those games, I would have written a letter and said, thanks, we've had so much fun playing your game, but there's never any way to connect. It was just some big company. There's nobody you can talk to. But the fact that I make myself accessible gives people a chance to reach out to us, and that's very gratifying.
Yeah. So as you've built this entire library of games, has it been like, oh, that's a really cool concept that we could turn into a game? I know you said your son helped with developing some of them, but has it just become such a fun addiction of sorts where like we could keep rolling these out? These are so fun. What more can we do? And what do you see the future of, because you're getting into other countries, you see it being global. Do you see focusing on these core 13 games, or are there more games in the works?
Once a week, we have a company meeting. I call it the Keeper meeting, like Keyper for our key persons. That's my name for our company meeting. And so we have a Keeper meeting every week, usually, unless we're traveling or something. And in our meeting yesterday, one of our things, we made a list of games that we have, that the hopper of things we're going to work on in the future. And I think it was probably 15 games on that list or more. And that's the ones we currently have that we're working on. Most of them have come within the family. A couple of them are ideas that, like, we were at a convention with one of our Canadian distributor a couple months ago, and a guy from up in Northern Ontario who runs a company that has like escape rooms says, yeah, I have some ideas for a game. And so he sent me an idea for an interesting game that we may do someday. And so we have a lot of ideas. We don't want to make more than 1 or 2 new games a year because we want to fully invest ourselves in them. And then we want our fans to be able to receive them and add them to their line, and with a little bit of pacing instead of coming out with 10 games at once every year, because I could take on ideas from other people. We could put out many games as we wanted to, and we could go into all kinds of games and products, but we've focused on what we love the most, which is card games, because to me, that's my preference over a big, complicated board game. I prefer a card game. It's not as much setup, and it doesn't take so much time, and it's fresh every time you deal it. So that's my personal preference. And so I'm going to mostly focus on what I love, although we have decided we're going to incorporate some puzzles from the artwork we have. So hopefully next year we'll have 3 puzzles to launch, that existing artwork, but in interesting arrangements that our artist is putting together to grow on the fact that we have all this beautiful artwork.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. So exciting to hear the evolution. So I'm curious, even with you were going to trade shows and you've been getting into toy stores, where did the transition come to Amazon and selling online? And was that a huge bump in sales to make that accessible there? Or just talk me through the evolution of the business and selling, and what things you've learned along the way with being in the marketplace, not even just with a game, but a physical product that you're selling. What are some things that you've learned?
Well, 15 years ago, Amazon wasn't available. You had to try and get into stores. You had to try and get distributors. You had to let people know where those stores were so they could find the product. But it's really hard to get into stores, and then it's hard for people to find the product because they may not have a store in their neighborhood. So it's a very limiting factor when you had to have people buy it at a store. It makes it hard to scale to wide distribution. So when Amazon became available, it was probably been 10 years ago, 11 years ago, that we started working on Amazon. And I just started myself trying. I'm not a computer guy, but I spent a couple months trying to set up the listing and get things going without any help. We got it all set up. It's like October. It's, oh, by the way, you're going to be shut off for the holiday season because you don't have a sales record. I go, what? I've been working on this for 2 months. And because they really were concerned about having good fulfillment during the holidays. And so they didn't want people to self-fulfill if they didn't have a track record of fulfillment, because they want to make sure they have good success with people getting their product on time. And so how can we get around that? So we have to go through FBA. You have to fulfill by Amazon. If you're going to do it that way, it's our responsibility to fulfill, not yours. We did that route, but we would be so excited to try and make enough each month to cover the basic fees. That was our first goal. It was to have to cover the $30 a month in fees or something. And that didn't happen initially. But the fact that Amazon existed gave us an attitude. But what really, see, if you create something, you have to create your own groundswell of driving people to Amazon. because there's a million things literally on Amazon. And if you don't provide reason for people to look there, then they won't find it. And it won't be successful, because you can't just put out there, expect people to find it, because they won't know where to look for it. So we do a lot of retail shows like Christmas gift shows and things to create some demand where people have the word of mouth. If someone's playing the game in Utah and their cousin lives in Arkansas and they say, hey, you should try this game, now they can get it in Arkansas from Amazon, where they couldn't get it if they had to find a store in Arkansas, because we wouldn't have one there. I don't think we would have been successful without the fact that Amazon allowed our products to be available everywhere. And this happens around the world. You can look up a report on Amazon and it shows every place where someone has bought a game. And there's places I can't pronounce that where people have bought games. And I've had conversations with people in South Africa or Barbados or who knows where. So it is interesting, the reach that people can find if they're willing to pay the shipping.
Wow, that's crazy. So do you see most of your fulfillment happening through Amazon or through your website directly? Where do you see the most success?
Last year, I would say 3/5, I think it is. Yeah, 3/5 of our sales were with Amazon. And we have 100 times more on Amazon than our website, because Amazon is one of the biggest search engines for a purchase. And if somebody does a Google search, they'll often just take them to Amazon as well. And Amazon is still super important. We have hundreds of stores that we distribute to directly. And so that's important, because we really feel that our retailers are some of our best influencers. If someone comes in, especially retail, which is where we mostly are focused on, if someone comes into it, like this first store we met in Utah, Red Balloon Stores, they believe in our product and they'll recommend it and they'll know the product. And so we've given away thousands and thousands of copies to retailers and to other people to get the people to try something. And so we'll give them to as many of the stores need to get their employees to play the game. We'll be happy to share it. And then they can get people to try it because they believe in the product. And so that helps out a lot, that people try them. And so retail stores are a big plus, but we didn't really put much effort to go internationally until the last couple of years, although we had one relationship with a distributor in Germany with Skull King for 10 years, which we got very little on, just a very small commission on. We ended that relationship and distribute directly now, and through direct with relationships with different companies that are strong in each language in Europe. Ravensburger, is a really big company in Germany, now is our distributor for Germany, Czech Republic, Poland, and Netherlands. We have direct relationships in Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and other languages that we have direct relationships. And we work with them on a partnership basis with our factories in Poland, and so we can do co-production with them.
Is that what you have to do when you get into global distribution? Is you have to partner with a company that is in that country? It can't just be you going and establishing Grandpa Beck's distribution in all of the countries. Is that the easier route?
For me, I don't speak very many other languages, like none, and I don't know the culture or the retailers. So it'd be a big presumption on my part to think that I can go into Poland or France or someplace and make a relationship with the store owners there. It's hard enough in English in the USA. We could have just licensed to some other distributor in Europe and let them do it. But again, we try and be more connected. And so we've developed a unique way, which I don't think really is done as much, where we have this distribution model instead of a licensing model, where we form this relationship with the leaders of the best company we can find in each language. We print 3 times a year. You can order games in those 3 times a year, and we sell you the whole lot of that production run in your language, and then you're in charge of that language because you know that language. You know the people, you know the culture, and we let them do the localization of it as well. We says, here's the graphics of the game. It's an open file. You can take out the English words and put in the Polish words, the French words, and you can make it. I don't check their work because I can't read the language. I trust that they make it sound well, and so they're our partner, and we give them some margin between the cost of the game and the wholesale price they would have to sell it at, and we give them the right to sell in that language. And like our French connection, they sell it in French-speaking Quebec as well as in French-speaking Europe, because we had this Canadian connection, but we didn't have things in French before. In France, they loved having French instead of just English, even though they probably could speak English, but they love things in their own language. And same is true other languages. People love to read things in the language they're comfortable with. That makes sense to me because I love to read things in English more than in Spanish.
So weird, huh? Oh, okay. I'm curious about another thing too, because I know I've met you through influencer events in the past. How much of the growth do you feel like has happened? It sounds like you've done a lot of connecting with retailers and that kind of a thing. But even with influencer marketing, have you seen a really good benefit to partnering with influencers and getting more exposure on social media that way? Has that led to a lot of sales?
We realize that the personal connection of social media is certainly the market of the future, where people find out about it through somebody else beyond their friends and neighbors, and then they find some way to buy it directly through our website or through online. And so we want to participate in that marketplace because retail stores may not be the big thing forever, although we really appreciate the work they do. And at a local toy store, game store is a very great community center. So we're really working hard on that. And our oldest daughter manages our social media, and she's built our Instagram list from very little to 15,000 or more. I'm not sure, maybe 17,000 now. She's worked really hard, and she's a mother of 5, and her husband's a doctor, but she gets to spend a couple hours a day working on this, and she gets some creative engagement. And so it's good for her, and it's good for us. And we appreciate taking lots of classes with other influencer leaders, people to learn things. And so it's been something for her to be engaged in. And so it's really been good for us as well. But in the actual return, it's hard to measure as much because like our affiliate program, which we started a couple of years ago, really hasn't produced the actual return to warrant the expense we spent on it. But for instance, I was on a cruise in February, and we stopped in Melbourne, and I had no plans that day. So I hopped on a little e-bike. I rode into town a couple miles just to see what the town was like. I come up in front of this convention center at the end of the road, and it's the Melbourne Convention Center. It's Melbourne Toy Fair. I didn't know they had one there, but the toy fair was in Melbourne. It was that Monday. And so it was 8:30 and the show started at 9. So I went and said, hey, can I get in today with my business card? They gave me a badge. And so I walked into the Melbourne Toy Fair, and there's rows, maybe 15 long rows of convention booths. I make a left. I walk about 20 feet, and this attractive woman in this fancy booth says, Grandpa Beck. And she recognized me from our social media. And she'd never met me. She'd never played our games, but she recognized me from our social media things. And this is the hottest, biggest distributor in Australia, New Zealand. And so now they're our new distributor in Australia, New Zealand, because she recognized me as I was walking by in Melbourne, Australia.
And were you even wearing your bowler hat that you traditionally wear?
No, I was just wearing shorts and a shirt because I wasn't really planning on going to a trade fair that day.
That's impressive. Wow. So yeah, there's power there. Definitely. It seems like you've done a really good job at having all of the touch points and everything that you can possibly do to build brand awareness. And I think that's probably, would you say that's the biggest contribution to your success, is building the overall brand, building a culture of the company, and not just pushing a product?
We have to have a good product. You have to have a game that is compelling.
Yeah.
You can't sell junk. And so you have to have a good product. And then you have to get it known some way. And a game, from the very first show I was out, I go, this is a hard thing to sell. A booth across the way would have a ball or a toy, and I go, that'd be so much easier to sell because you can tell what it is right away. This box is hard to sell because no one can tell if it's any good because it's just a pretty box with cards in it. And so I think this is a hard thing to sell. But the good thing about it is maybe those balls or simple things could have been easy, but the next one's the new one, and that old one is no longer the latest thing, and so it goes away. And so even though it was hard to get the card game thing going, it's possible, I think, that it has a longer product lifespan than something that is much simpler to understand. So I'm grateful for that. And my wife is always, as far as the style and stuff, she always says, let's not be trendy. Let's not be a flash sort of thing. Let's make something that's going to be enduringly interesting for a long time and build this for a generational thing, not for a quick sell.
Yeah. So that's probably been a big reason for the success and the growth of the company, is that bigger vision, understanding really your audience, which you have to find that product market fit, right? Do you feel like you went into this knowing, obviously it's a game, we're trying to bring in families, but have you gotten to know your audience even more than you initially knew them as you've seen them playing and as you've grown the business?
Our goal has been from the beginning to make things that children, teens, adults, and seniors could all play together. And when I get pictures of people around the kitchen table with an 8-year-old, 16-year-old, parents and the grandparents enjoying an evening together, that's very heartwarming for us. And I get that all the time. And I have 8 and 10-year-olds call me on the phone and say, hi, Grandpa Beck. I enjoy your game. Thank you. I enjoy it. And so I enjoy that. But I really am grateful that we are able to make products that fit a wide demographic. We don't design games for the nerdy 25-year-old engineer who wants a game that's going to explore the biggest to produce Pluton in some foreign planet or who knows whatever. It's like, or this whole world of some imaginary ongoing Dungeon and Dragons sort of thing is a big, cool thing for people, but a product that is easy to learn in just a few minutes, and yet you'll be playing it for decades.
Yeah.
Because of the freshness as you go on, and they'll look back at it and say, we're closer because we spent this time, and Grandpa Beck helped us. There's a basic concept there's a book I read years ago, How to Become I forget the term, but basically make the customer the hero. Don't promote yourself as the hero. You be the guide, and you help the customer become the hero because you're helping them to accomplish a worthy goal. And we're the guide to help them be successful.
Is it Brand Story? Is that the book you're talking about?
Yeah, to build a brand story company. So it was a book. I think I made sure all of our team members read it, and I've talked to everyone who helps someone make a website or say, follow this guideline of all this perspective of make the customer the hero, not us the hero, because we want to be the guide. We want to be the Yoda, not Luke Skywalker. We want to be Yoda.
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
so,
Love it. Okay. So as we prepare to depart from this great conversation, what are a couple of things that you would tell your past self or somebody who's just getting started in either a business or even a specific business of product distribution?
For me, I didn't quit my day job. I didn't put the pressure on myself of having investors or of making it full time. I said, okay, I'm going to keep my day job, which I loved. I was an airline pilot. I loved my job and I enjoyed it, but I'm going to work on the side and create something else and not give up my career. But that took away the pressure of having to survive off of it. And so for me, that was better. On Shark Tank, they always want people to quit the job and go full time because they want to scale something and sell it again or whatever. But our goal was to make a lifetime business, not a business we could scale up and sell. That wasn't our goal. When people talk to me, I have a game I want to make. I said, well, don't quit your day job because it's no guarantee it's going to become super successful. There are people who make rocket successes, but that was not our case. And so also we thought about maybe people could have invested in the company or we could have taken on other people's products. But my wife said, we don't want that pressure. We don't want that pressure of someone else controlling our thing or making us do more or us selling something we don't really believe in. So we didn't take those ways to maybe we spend our own money and more than we had sometimes, but it was our choice. But because it was our thing and because we had the potential to make it meaningful, we were willing to sacrifice money and sleep to work towards it because we believed in it and we believe it can be valuable. And now we have our artist and my sales manager and a couple of our kids who need the employment. We feel more motivated because we want this is a generational thing that can stay in the family and they can be successful and support these people we love that work with us. And even our kids who don't work in the company, shareholders, they gain if we're successful. So we have that motivation beyond our own personal needs to make it successful for others as well and to make it so that it'll go beyond our own needs.
Yeah. So you just aligned that with what your vision is for future, and that has gone beyond your retirement and is going to make that generational impact, which is so exciting and probably more than you ever, I think you even said, but way bigger than you ever even imagined when you first started, which is really exciting.
And it's pretty gratifying. And I was talking to a pilot when I was flying and he says, you have a legacy. When I'm gone, no one's going to remember me. I was the guy that flew the plane, but they won't know that I flew the plane. But you have this legacy because your name and your picture and your family is a part of people's lives in the future. And it's a rare thing that I have this unique thing as a 67-year-old retired guy to have this connection with people around the world who have a warm feeling about our family because of the fact that we have this kind of distant but connected part of their families.
What would you say that your top favorite game? I'm sure it's hard like picking a favorite child, but if you had to choose, what would you recommend people start with?
My favorite and what I recommend to start with may not exactly.
Okay, yeah, let's hear both.
But we have all our games are accessible and all of them are not complicated. None of them will overwhelm someone to try and learn. And all of our games have how to play videos and have frequently asked questions. So you can learn them all. So no one should feel intimidated. We call Covered Assets our gateway game. And then we have the game that probably I play the most recreationally and the one that growing most around the world is the Skull King game because trick-taking is a very popular concept and a lot of people think it's one of the best trick-taking games out there. In fact, we have a group that does demos for us and they do regional and national championship tournaments around game conventions all year long and have the big national championship at Gen Con every year in Indiana in August. And we're trying to have them in Europe as well, with France having a big Skull King tournament at the Cannes Game Festival in February.
Wow.
So fun things like that.
Yeah,
so.
That's amazing. Thank you again for coming on. I know this has been inspiring to anybody wanting to start a business, and maybe some people out there are hearing this saying, it doesn't sound like maybe the easiest business, but it sounds like a lot of fun. And I think even regardless of what you choose to sell, just hearing how you've approached it and really incorporated in that vision and understanding and having that grit and determination to evolve and change, those are all valuable lessons that every entrepreneur needs to hear and understand, because success for most people is not overnight. And to see what you've been able to build as you've stuck it out and as you've continued to grow is just really awesome. So thanks for coming on and sharing.
It's been my pleasure. I appreciate the chance to visit with you. And I'm really grateful that the games have been meaningful in your own family, because I really think of this as an outreach from our family to every family that enjoys them. And anybody who's having that experience, it warms our heart and it makes us feel like we're purposeful and that our effort is meaningful and that we're blessed as a result of that experience.
Awesome. Love it so much. Thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you to our show sponsors for today's episode, making it possible for us to learn the ins and outs of building a game. And I can't believe it didn't come up in this conversation, but years ago, my husband and I actually also launched a game. It was in the craze of all of these big mouth games where you insert the mouse retractor and you have to say the words. And that was actually the name of our iteration, was the big mouth game. And I know firsthand the amount of work that has to go into finding great suppliers and doing the artwork and all the things that make a game truly successful. Now, we didn't have the same success Grandpa Beck did, but I appreciate the hustle and I understand what goes into any business becoming really, really popular. And I love what they've been able to build in terms of brand identity and community and how the vision has gotten bigger and bigger. If this episode inspired you, let us know over on Instagram or TikTok. We're going to be sharing clips from this episode, and we would love to hear from you what you loved and what your questions are when it comes to embarking on your business. And of course, check out our free resources at millionaireuniversity.com so you can learn yourself how to graduate rich, not broke. Thanks for listening to today's episode. We'll see you guys on the next one. Have a great day.